After a failed putsch in Russia, Wagner Group head Yevgeny Prigozhin and his men are on Belarusian territory. Reinforcement refers to both an increase in the forces that will be there permanently and an increase in the number of different types of obstacles and fortifications to protect our border should it come under attack. Exact information about the number of troops and equipment for reasons of Polish security is kept secret. Security of the state border is primarily the responsibility of the border guards, but the Polish military is also involved. Let me remind you that the temporary fence was made by the engineering troops. Now we have a permanent fence, but it is also reinforced by military patrols. Experts indicate that Wagner's group does not pose a direct military threat to Poland, but the mercenaries could be used to smuggle illegal migrants. We can take into account such a threat that these bandits will be used by Russian or Belarusian services, although it is one and the same, for some provocations on the border, and there must be reinforcement, support of border services by the military, and there must be an increase in combat readiness. Wagner's group is a private army used by the Kremlin. Unofficially, up to a dozen thousand mercenaries may be stationed in Belarus. A week ago, there was also information about the deployment of Russian nuclear weapons on the territory of the Belarusian state. This is a challenge for the Belarusian society, because murderers, war criminals, rapists are coming, but also this entity can continue to develop. No one knows what Lukashenko and Prigozhin agreed on. In recent weeks, there has been an increase in illegal traffic on the Polish-Belarusian border. There have been physical attacks on guards. In June alone, 13 official vehicles were damaged. The border barrage is helping to repel the hybrid attack on Poland. The task of the physical barrier is to stop illegal border crossings. This barrier fulfills these tasks 100%. Individuals overcome this barrier, of course, but only and only if the Belarusian services help them. Without the support of the Belarusian services, they would certainly not be able to overcome these safeguards. Opposition politicians have criticized the government since the beginning of the attack on the Polish border. Border guard officers have been compared to trash and German war criminals. MEP elected from the European coalition lists, Janina Ochojska, says outright that the barrier must be abolished. And do you think that after the elections, if the opposition wins, this barrier should be taken down? I think so. There are 1,800 kilometers of barriers in Europe. Those barriers will have to be torn down again. Many opposition politicians do not distinguish between the government and the Polish state. A Polish politician can criticize the government, while one should defend the interests of the state at all costs. Unfortunately, civic platform politicians are unable to see this and very often attack the Polish nation, especially abroad, violating the basic interests of our nation. Meanwhile, the first Abrams tanks purchased by the Law and Justice government arrived in Poland yesterday. Meanwhile, the U.S. State Department has agreed to sell Poland 48 launchers of the Patriot system and more than 600 missiles for these launchers. Also, we know here about big plans when it comes to tanks from South Korea, so K2 Black Panther tanks. At the moment, we have probably 30 of them, and the contract that has already been concluded says that 180 will be delivered. Russia and Belarus launched a hybrid war against Poland and the Baltic states in the summer of 2021. Moscow, in cooperation with Minsk, wanted to flood these countries with a wave of illegal migrants to prevent them from accepting war refugees from Ukraine. However, thanks in part to the border guard and the barrier built, this practice has been limited.